Nike seems to be working on dialing in its running line starting last year. The Peg 39 and the Alpha Fly 2 both got dialed in updates that maybe toned down their extremes and softened the rough edges, but ultimately made better versions of each shoe. But nothing has been as extreme of a dialing in as with the Invincible 3. It's not like I don't like max cushion shoes, but I try to spend as little time as possible in them, pretty much any time of year when I'm running, as possible. Because when I'm doing my weekly mileage, I want to really maximize leg and foot strength. And that means I want to feel my foot hitting the ground. I want to feel the ground. I want to feel, my toe off. I want to feel all of those mechanics. And in a max cushion shoe that's a big chunk of foam under your foot, you don't feel anything, and all that energy you're putting into the ground and trying to build into your body just gets lost in the foam. That's not to say that I didn't run a lot in Invincible 1s and 2s. I did. I enjoyed them for easy recovery runs under 7 or 8 miles. Anything longer than that, they just felt really mushy and just kind of slushy and really not pleasant to my feet. So when I saw the Invincible 3 release, I was intrigued, but I figured I don't need it now because, spring is really about maximizing training. Again, foot and leg strength. You'll hear me talk a lot about that. And I don't need a max cushion shoe right now. But when I started to see the reviews of this shoe and how other reviewers were talking about this shoe being firmer or less bouncy even, I was really intrigued enough to finally buy a pair. And when I bought a pair of Invincible 3s, I was blown away. Nike has done a truly outstanding update here. They have turned a shoe that was big and bouncy and really a one-trick pony into something that is now extremely versatile and honestly quite a bit of fun to run in still. So let's start with the first issue that every other reviewer has talked about, and that really is the heel. So I think that really can be attributed to 3 things. First, the heel cup in the Invincible 3 is extremely different than the 1 and 2. So as soon as you put this shoe on, there's so much less padding and less material and just less buildup in this heel collar, and particularly the heel, that it automatically feels different. Now, that's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a design problem. It's the reality of the shoe. And I actually think it's quite good. But if you're expecting an Invincible 1 or 2, then yeah, this shoe's going to feel really different. The second big change is this upper. It is a very stiff material. Stiffer than definitely the Invincible 1 or 2, but stiffer than a lot of other Nike shoes that we've seen recently. And the first few runs, you definitely feel it. You feel the shoe isn't necessarily flexing, and I think it pulls the heel a little bit. I would say in my first 3 or 4 runs in this shoe, I was conscious of the heel. I wasn't really having any heel slip, nothing I was aware of, and I actually don't know if I was so conscious of the heel because it was on my mind, because everyone had talked about it. But I definitely felt, because of the upper and because of the different padding in the heel, that I was aware of the heel. I'm not going to call it heel slip. And the last thing that I'll say is there is a strobel board in this shoe. And what that is a fabric board, essentially, between the insole and the midsole. Now, the Invincible 1 and 2 didn't have that. You literally were running on the midsole. You had the insole in the shoe, and that sat on top of the midsole, and you ran directly on the midsole. In this shoe, you have a piece of material between the insole and the midsole. It's a much more traditional sort of build for really any shoe, not just a running shoe. And the shoe feels stiffer. Let's say that. The flex of the shoe is stiffer. So when you get a different padding in the heel, you get a stiffer upper and a stiffer, let's just call it midsole upper, like what's right under your foot. The shoe feels extremely different, but it does take a little bit of time to sort of mold to your foot and flex. After 4 or 5 runs in this shoe, I didn't notice any of this stuff anymore. And the more the shoe's molded to my foot, I have about 60 miles on this shoe, on this pair. Um, I don't feel it at all. The upper has softened up pretty well. The strobel board is now molded to my foot, and I just don't feel any of this stuff. So, am I saying that the other reviewers were not feeling something? No, everyone's foot's gonna be a little different, and I think um, some people may get some heel slip in this, but I don't think it's a design flaw, nor do I think it is a universal issue. I don't think everyone is going to be impacted by this issue. So let's talk about the other big change in this shoe, and that's the strobel board that I just mentioned. Now, again, that's a board that sits between the insole in the shoe and the midsole. Again, fairly traditional running shoe. Pretty much every shoe has that. It makes this shoe stiffer. Now, it's not stiff like a carbon plate. There isn't another carrier foam in here. This is still all ZoomX foam, but the shoe is not as squishy or as flexy, if you will, as the Invincible 1 and 2 was. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that benefits the shoe considerably. It makes the shoe much more versatile. I would never, ever use this shoe for anything more than, 8, 9 miles max, because any more than that, it just felt slushy and mushy, and I just wanted to be in any other shoe but an Invincible. But with this strobel board edition, it has changed the nature of the shoe completely. And this is something that a lot of people may not like because they want that sort of squishy, bouncy thing that was in the Invincible 1 or 2. But I think as far as a running shoe and versatility in a running shoe, I think this shoe, the Invincible 3, is a much better shoe. It is not just a max cushion shoe anymore. It is truly a shoe that you could call a daily trainer because you can do so much more in this shoe. And I've taken this shoe on runs and types of runs that I never, ever would have dreamed of taking an Invincible 1 or 2 on. Not just distance, but the type of run. And then there's another change to this shoe, which I didn't even know about the 1 and 2. And I only learned about this when I watched another reviewer's video that went to the Berlin release event. I'll link the video in the description if you want to watch the whole thing. And there was a product manager from Nike talking about the Invincible and some of the things that they changed in the shoe. And he mentioned that they had removed a secondary rocker that was in the forefoot. Now, he motioned like this, so I assume it ran this way, which means the shoe had a secondary rocker that did this. Now, I didn't know about that at all in the Invincible 1 or 2. I never, ever heard anyone talk about it. But it explains something that I always felt in the 1 and 2 that I never liked. The Invincible 1 and 2 always forced me to run midfoot, to land like this, to land behind the ball of my foot. Now, I'm naturally a forefoot striker, so I want to land up on my toes, even on easy runs. I want to work on that sort of toe off, and I want to feel all that. But I could never do that in the Invincible 1 or 2, consistently at least, because the shoe would always force me back here. It wanted me to run here and only here. I attribute that to some of the stiffness that the strobel board is adding to the shoe. When there wasn't one, the shoe was, again, too slushy for me. But that secondary rocker, I think, was probably forcing my foot behind the ball of my foot. I get a similar feeling, actually, in an Asics Nova Blast because they have that trampoline sort of centerpiece in there. And I get the exact same problem I had with the Invincible 1 and 2. And I don't like it. But in this shoe, I don't get it at all. In fact, this shoe actually feels like there's a pocket now up on the toe, and it feels incredible. Again, it adds to the versatility of the shoe because I can run on my forefoot, I can do faster work. It feels great. It feels like it wants me to be there and it's going to allow me to be there. And if I want to get, go back into the midfoot, or it's a longer run and I'm fatiguing and I am, hitting more midfoot, it still feels natural in there and I can adjust that. Importantly, I can adjust that. The shoe's not forcing me to do one or the other. I can choose that. There's another change to the Invincible 3 that I think probably has a lot to do with this as well, is that there is separate outsole pieces of rubber. There's one for the forefoot and the one for the heel. I have to think that that is also contributing to the flex of the shoe overall. And again, making it more natural maybe to be up on the front of the shoe because you don't have the heel sort of dragging down like this. Something I always did feel in the Invincible 1 or 2. It just felt like the heel was trying to pull me backwards. It's hard to describe, but it was not a pleasant feeling, particularly when I was trying to really go fast or get up on my toes. So again, versatility. Nike has done something really incredible with this shoe and turned something that, was just big and bouncy into something that can do so much more. The Invincible is now a versatile shoe. That's something I never thought I would say about this shoe, ever. Can I do an easy run in it? Yep. Could I do an easy run in it before? Yep. That's something that it does pretty well. Can I do a long run in it? Yep. That's something I never would have done before. And when I mean long run, I'm talking 20, 25K, pushing definitely over half marathon. I would always use a plated shoe for that, like an Alpha Fly, or I would, do it in a Vaporfly. I would never do it in Invincible, but I've done a few now in this and they feel great. The shoe works really well for me. Can I do a tempo run in it? Yeah, it'll do that. It does it pretty well, particularly tempo in a longer run, like a fartlek. Can this shoe do a fartlek, particularly really fast sort of, 1K repeats in a longer sort of marathon type run? Totally. This does it really well. Can I do intervals in this shoe? Yeah. Is it the shoe I'm going to choose for intervals? No. But can I do them in it? Yeah. And I think for certain cases where maybe I don't know, doing some hill work in a longer run and I just want to do that in one shoe, this is now a prime candidate because if you've seen my other videos, I love the Streak Fly, particularly for hill repeats. And I can do longer runs in that. I've done half marathon and above runs in that. It works fine, but honestly, this is a little bit better for the longer stuff. This is sort of a nice blend between something that can do intervals and the longer stuff. Again, it's not going to be my first choice for an interval, but I can do them in there. What this all means, though, is that this is a max cushion shoe. It still is a max cushion shoe, but it legitimately now can be a daily trainer. If you think the Pegasus is too minimal or you want more cushion in your daily trainer, this is the shoe now. And it's pretty remarkable how well this redesign has worked. This is still an Invincible. We've still got 40 mil of ZoomX foam in the heel and 31 mil of ZoomX foam in the forefoot, giving you a 9 mil drop. It's still 10.6 ounces and 300 grams. Dimension-wise, this is still fundamentally the same as the Invincible 1 or 2. There's a little bit more foam. There's like a millimeter more stack height. And I think the forefoot in the heel area is maybe a millimeter wider. But fundamentally, this is still an Invincible. To me, it's still I'm going to call it a big, bulky shoe. But Nike has done something incredible here where it's still an Invincible, but it doesn't feel like an Invincible anymore. This shoe feels smaller and more nimble. Things that I would say about a Pegasus, I would now kind of say about this shoe. In fact, I've been running in an Asics Nova Blast 3, working on a video for that actually. Subscribe if you want to see that. And when I switch between the Nova Blast and this shoe, which Nova Blast isn't necessarily a max cushion shoe, but it's a more cushioned daily trainer, this shoe feels like a racing flat. It's remarkable. I can't describe it. It's not a racing flat. It is an Invincible, but compared to the Nova Blast, this thing feels like I'm running on nothing. And I like that. I like that this shoe sort of, I'm not going to say disappears on my foot, but it's not as big and shouty as an Invincible 1 or 2 was, just this big bulky thing. It still has a really nice connection from this to the Alpha Fly. So if you race in an Alpha Fly or you do tempo work in either the Tempo or the Zoomfly 5, this shoe is going to feel very natural as a daily trainer in that sort of training rotation. It's got the same sort of footprint in the forefoot and the heel. It will run the same. It's got some of the same bulk to it. It's going to be a very natural sort of progression for you working in that training rotation. But overall, again, Nike has somehow managed to take an Invincible and make it just feel like less of a shoe, which again is something I always wanted in Invincible because I love the way the Invincible felt for a few miles, but after a while it was too slushy. And again, if you've seen my videos, you know I love the Streak Fly, and I've called the Streak Fly the Invincible Light, and it still is, but this shoe, I'm starting to do some more stuff in this shoe that I would typically have done in the Streak Fly. Again, it's really remarkable how Nike has made this shoe change in a very positive way, for me at least. Now, I will say about the Streak Fly, if you loved the squish and the running directly on the ZoomX foam of the 1 and 2, look at the Streak Fly, because the Streak Fly gives you that feeling. Yes, it's much lighter. Yes, there's much less foam. Yes, it's much less durable, but you still get that big bouncy fun feeling. You get it in a more nimble, I think, better package. So it's something to look at. Or you find the 1 and 2 on sale and you just stock up, because this shoe is significantly different, but in a very positive way. And I would recommend, if you're curious, give it a try, because I actually think this is probably one of the best redesigns Nike has done in years. It is outstanding. Let me know what you think about the Invincible 3, or let me know if you think that I'm crazy or not. If you agree with my sort of perspective on the Invincible 3 or not. I know people love the 1 and 2. I get it, but the 3 is just a better shoe. It's just a more versatile shoe. It's just a better shoe. And if you liked the 1 and 2, but you didn't love them, give the 3 a shot. I think, again, it's an outstanding shoe, and it's definitely worth the effort to try it at least. And when I say try it for more than a handful of runs, 3 or 4 runs at least. Let it mold your foot. Let it, sort of become yours, as opposed to just fresh out of the box, because it will feel very different fresh out of the box. And worst case scenario, if you don't like it for running, it actually is a great casual shoe. It is something that I've worn a little bit casually, and it works really well. Again, that's nothing I ever would have done with the 1 or 2, because they were just too soft, too mushy, and they looked kind of weird, actually. I think the Invincible 3 actually kind of looks better. So I hope this was insightful. As always, like, subscribe. I appreciate all the feedback over the past month or so that this channel's been live. I've got a lot more planned. The likes and subscriptions help immensely. So with that, I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.